from Conservation Blueprint, and her presentation is Motivations, Concerns, and Success in Accessing Private Land Sites for Native Seed Harvest. Go ahead.
Right. So thank you for being here. This is like my first time presenting at anything like this, so cut me a little bit of slack. I'm here to talk about, native seed harvests, but more specifically the people, the landowners behind those seed harvests. And before we get into it, just to share a little bit about me, I've been living in central Nebraska for about 3 years, and for about the past year or so, I've worked as a field technician at Conservation Blueprint, which is a native seed company based at St. Paul. It's like maybe an hour northeast of here. I'm not great with directions, but yeah. So basically, in a nutshell, my job during the spring, summer, and fall months is to go out, identify native plant species, and harvest the seeds when they're ready, along with my coworkers. So for a little bit of context for people who might not be familiar with this stuff, why do we go out and collect seeds? Well, there's a huge need for native seeds across the country, and that includes the Great Plains, of course, because, just imagine all the tons of native seeds needed for new CRP projects, for lands, for like thousands of acres of solar fields, vegetating those fields, hopefully with native plants to give ecological benefits. And even smaller projects like urban pollinator gardens, incentivizing city parks to use native plants even in their landscaping. And so there's a huge need for it, and while the supply side it hasn't caught up to it, it has a long way to go. We're working on it. And one of the ways to bring those seeds to market is to harvest from wild populations. Nebraska is 97% privately owned. So this means going up to a private landowner, giving them the knock on their door and asking them for permission to access these places, these remaining grasslands that we still have in central Nebraska. Some of them are pretty high quality. So we want to make sure that we get to share this with other places, especially highly modified landscapes where this work is needed the most. And so this is my coworkers, out there picking. I wanted to understand, why would these landowners let us just go into their fields, trust us to close their gates behind us, drive all over, spend multiple days as a multiple people crew out there just picking stuff? Like, why did they trust us to do this? Why, right? And so I wanted to have some casual sit-down conversations. And so I used these 12 questions to kind of orient my study of this. I'm not going to read them out loud. It's just everything ranging from, what is your connection to the land? How do you manage your land? And why do we let us get here? And so I sat down with 3 landowners, Mike, Fred, and Ron, and I chose them because they have a lot of similarities, but then also some differences. As you can see, they're all male and they're all older, which is pretty representative of central Nebraska landowners. We've got 2 agricultural producers, one whose family has been in the area since 1902, which is a big deal in my opinion, and another that's a more recent newcomer, but has established roots here. His kids are going to inherit the business and are already kind of running it. And so they manage their land as working land. They hay it, they graze it. And then we have Mike, who's a very different landowner. He's a recreational landowner, so he manages his land for bird hunting, but also to create habitat for other species. And I thought this is a good mix to give us kind of an insight of what central Nebraska is like. And so this was one of the questions I asked them, one of the first ones. So were you familiar with the species that we pick on here? And maybe unsurprisingly, they could name several species, especially the grasses, but when it came to the more uncommon forbs, it kind of surprised them, like, oh, hey, we found this growing here. And they're like, really? I didn't even know that was a thing. So I thought, to me, that's very interesting, raising awareness about these plants and hopefully getting them to care about them, like our keynote speakers talked about, right? And it makes me very happy that they can all now name several plant genuses or genera that we harvest on there. So that's important to me. And so my other question was, are you curious about what we picked? Do you want to get a call and say, on this day, we closed the gates, everything, and we found XYZ? And I was surprised to hear, there was a little bit of a variation. One landowner's like, oh, good that you found something, but you don't need to call me about it. While in others, one of them even likes coming out to pick with us. He's that interested. So I thought that was pretty cool. This was one of the quotes from Ron. Many times I've wondered what this country would have looked like 300 years ago. It would have been a sea of grass. And this quote to me really shows how he's definitely interested. This is land that's been in his family for a long time. That's a picture of his meadow last fall. And so then the big question, why do you allow us to pick on your land? And I've highlighted a few quotes that I pulled from the interviews and identified some themes that run through it. A big one was land ethic. This idea that they want to pass the quality of life and these experiences that they've had to their children and to their grandchildren. And Fred, he gave me this quote, "I let you guys pick on here because it's the easiest way for me to be a conservationist." I thought that was pretty funny. And this landowner in particular, we harvest on their pivot corner. I mean, these are marginal spaces that they've held on by the, skin of their teeth. Is that yeah, that sounds weird, but that's true. And so this is one of the species that we harvest on there, Hashi sunflower. It's one that we try to go after it on his property and on other properties pretty hard because it's a good addition to CRP mixes and other things like that. Another motivation was this willingness and this enthusiasm in sharing. So Mike, he told me, I think it's important to share diversity. He has riparian habitat, so he's got a lot of plants that grow on sandy sites that he's happy to share with other people. He enjoys them, his wife enjoys them, and so he wants other people to enjoy them too. And then Ron, he told me also, it pleases me to know that I have something growing on my property other people would want. And that ties us to the last motivation, which is pride. It makes me very happy that these people feel pride in the land that they own, especially when we find an unusual plant that there is no county record of it being in Howard County, which is where we're based. You're definitely doing something right with your land management if these uncommon species like woolly milkweed, other things like that, still persist in these grasslands. And so that's the one that makes me the most excited. So what else? What do they get out of it, right? I mean, if you know anything about the native seed trade, it doesn't have very fat margins, right? It's very labor intensive. We're harvesting in the wild and then we're cleaning the seed, and there's a lot of steps to get it to the final project. So product. So one of the things that they get out of it is seed to go back out onto the prairies where we harvest so that they can increase the diversity on their land. So after we're done cleaning the seed, there's the trash, what we call the trash. It's just the leftovers, the chaff, everything, but there's still seed in there. So we try hard to get these plants back out there, get these seeds out there so that, they can go back into it and continue producing and continue providing all the benefits to wildlife. They also get some technical support and even help for habitat improvement. This picture is on Mike's land. That's Mike on the tractor, and that's my boss helping him plant thickets of American plum because he wanted to bring quail onto his property. He wanted to promote that kind of habitat. And so, when you make those relationships, we give back after they give us access to their land. I also really wanted to know, are you worried? Are you worried about us going here? And surprisingly, there were very few worries or concerns that were listed off to me. One concern is, please don't tear up the ground. If it's muddy, if it's slick, please just don't drive on it, right? The other concern was that we would leave trash out in the field, especially as a multiple person crew. That's very valid. It's never happened. So with time and with positive experiences, those concerns went away, and we've ended up building trust. And these are relationships that go back several years now. I think one of them even a decade. And so the more it's positive reinforcement, right? The more good we do, the more willing they are to let us in. And now moving on to our successes. This is a whiteboard that we keep at work, tracking every species that we harvest and how many pounds of it we have and what's the goal and all that. I'm obviously not going to read that all out, but you can see that's a lot. That's a lot of plants to find in one county or a few counties. And it's all because these landowners, these ones and dozens more, let us do the work that we do. I want to highlight just a few plants because I thought that would be fun, especially for people who may not be from this area. So this is sensitive briar. I have the distribution map on that other side. The arrow is pointing to Howard County, which is where we pick native, the light green counties are where the plant has been found. It's what's growing native. This is one that we pick on several lands, especially Ron's. We have hairy hawkweed, which to me is fun because, you know, we're not on the map on there. So these maps have gaps, but I just find that exciting to find something that, you know, the landowner ended up mowing or haying around this portion so that we could get the seed, which I'll get to that in a bit. And then finally, pitcher sage. That's a huge plant for monarchs. It blooms right when they're migrating south. If we're wanting to tag monarchs, we usually go to the pitcher sage because chances are you can find them on there. That's also one that we pick big time. And so we ended up building these relationships. You know, I've only been here a year. The folks have been here for longer. They've worked on these relationships really hard. They've developed an annual tradition, which is to deliver these handmade baskets as a thank you. You know, everybody in the team pitches in and we all make something, you know, jam or honey or bread, something that shows that we appreciate you and we would like to continue, you know, visiting with you and caroling to them and dressing kind of goofy. We also, you know, help them with other stuff like prescribed burns. I have to mention the Central Nebraska Prescribed Burn Association. If you're not from Nebraska, we have these prescribed burn associations throughout the state. It's neighbors helping neighbors burn. The labor, the knowledge, everything, it just gets a big pool. It's a neighbor community thing. And so that's me looking very red on my first prescribed burn, which was on Mike's property. So that was fun. And on that other side, the tall picture, that's that pivot corner that we burned. And I think the only time it's been burned, at least on purpose, was at the incentive of my boss, right, Pete. And my favorite part of this is that through showing interest in these plants and showing them what they are and that other people would actually want them, we've been able to influence some management decisions, which to me is a big deal, right? We've encouraged them to burn the ground more often because that's good for native seed production, but it's also good for grassland health. Even delaying haying, like, please, can you not hay this parcel? Because we need to get the plants on here. And this is a problem that they said yes, right? Or even one of the landowners, Fred, he even skipped haying that portion altogether. He wasn't getting enough hay out of it for the, you know, weighing the pros and benefits, the pros being us being happy that he lets us on here. And I'm sure that the grassland birds like that grasshopper sparrow, they appreciate having this cover, the nesting structure, everything. So that's it. I did good on time, didn't I?
You did great.
Okay, perfect. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them if I can. Yep.
Good job, Rita.
Thank you.
This is your first time.
Yeah.
The question I have is in the initial part of your work.
Sorry?
With the initial part of your work, when you start looking for the people who is willing to let you in and collect the seeds,
Right.
what is your strategy?
Mhm.
Do you have a list of people and then you visit them at geographic location? Could you elaborate that?
Yeah, absolutely. So what's our strategy for deciding which landowners to ask access to, right? So P has done, my boss, right? He's done a lot of this. He's worked in the region for a long time, so he got to know landowners through professional relationships and just Bible study or meeting them in town. And so hearing about what is on this land, so we might be interested in going there. But also one of my coworkers, Tina, she lived there. She's lived here her entire life in this county. She drives all the country roads. She knows all her neighbors. So she's always constantly scouting for stuff that she can see from the road. And so then we try to find a contact and reach out to them. You know, I didn't really look at all the landowners that we have to see what they might have in common, but these 3 landowners have a past of enrolling their lands in conservation projects, not these ones that we pick on, but others. And so I think that might make them more willing to let us on there. So, but it's mostly that it's driving around a lot, asking people, noticing stuff. Yep.
I was wondering, when you're collecting seeds, what percentage of like seeds do you collect from a spot, and how much do you leave behind?
That's a great question. So, BLM, Seeds of Success program has like a rule, you don't take more than 20%. That's very, we are more flexible with that. We monitor, so what's the species of it? Is it a species that spreads a lot? Is it a species that's more conservative? What's the size of the population on that property? What's the, how sensitive is the land? Is it something that is at the prairies where we work, literally owned by Pete, where we have a lot more influence about restoring that population, or maybe not burning that tract, or not grazing it at all. So, we have more control over that. So we try to take all that into consideration and then making individual decisions. Yep.
Rita, thanks for sharing this. I think most of us recognize the value of having access to local ecotype seed, but sharing the social part of it is super cool.
Yeah.
And taking time to visit with the landowners.
Yeah.
For this, but also throughout the process, and staying connected is
Right.
Is going to have long-term benefits.
Right, and it was so fun. I got to meet, I'm not from here, I'm from Portugal. I grew up in a city. I have nothing to do with anything rural. I never thought I'd live here. And then I moved here and I met these people, and they're what makes living in Nebraska, or central Nebraska, so great. And so the fact that I get to meet people from different backgrounds with different opinions, to me, that's just awesome. So it's a great perk. Yep.
In the Heritage Program, we collect data from private lands rather than seed. And we kind of wrestle with this question of landowner comfort level with then what we do with the data.
Right.
Was there any concern from the landowners that you worked with about at-risk species observations, T&E species, regulation that could follow?
That's a great question. I do not know. I have not been there for, if any of those conversations came up, I wasn't there. I'll let Pete chime in if he wants to, but I think the fact that he's local, so they live near him, they frequent the same social circles as him, they see it as I'm glad that you found this on my property, I must be doing something good, not I want to hide it, So, but I'll look into that. Yep.
Do you have any of the landowners that you've collected on, do they ever ask the monetary value of these seeds collected and
Right, I think sometimes they do, or some, we've had mostly great successes. I can't say the percentage, but maybe one or two has said, you have to pay me to get these seeds, and the price that they name is it doesn't make sense with the business side of it. I'm just talking. If I'm saying something wrong, you can just ignore it. And so with that, at first, for example, for Fred's corner, I know that Pete offered him offered some money to delay haying, and he was okay with that. And now he doesn't even charge us to go on there. So I think when we build that relationship, they, either they understand that the margins are slim because it's also their business, right? Margins in agriculture are not very wide if you're a small-time producer. So I think with that, yeah. Does that answer your question?
Well, and I was just curious, some of these native species are the value of their seeds is really high. I was just curious, if any of them, if they how much does this stuff cost a pound or whatever,
Has anybody ever asked that? They all do? I guess I just wasn't there to hear the questions, yeah. But what did they say afterwards?
They all do, and then every one of them comes up and watches the cleaning process, the storage process, the marketing.
You said it's not
And
worth
they
it.
get faster real fast.
Yeah.
Thinking that it's a real income generating process.
Right. I mean, we started cleaning some goldenrod species in October, and we finally had a party in March or April because we were done. And we only got 18 pounds of seed out of it, so it's a lot of man hours working on it, yeah. Yeah.
Who are the recipients of the seed? Is it mostly going back to the landowners or other private landowners? Do you work with other restoration partners who want the seed?
So I know that the seed goes off to wholesale seed vendors sometimes, and then they put it into conservation mixes, or how is it? Like it ends up going to a lot of CRP projects, solar, vegetating solar sites, stuff like that. We try. I think we do try to keep it as local as possible. To maintain those local genetics. It's just what works in each year. Yep. Got any more? Oh, yep.
Since you kind of brought it up, or you brought it up, what is the process like for cleaning the seeds?
So we, for example, with this plant, I think it's downy gentian. I've never cleaned this one. We haven't gotten huge quantities of it, but you clip the top of the plant off or the seed head off in the field, and then it goes in the bag. And so then months later in the winter, we go through rubbing them through different sized screens to filter out the size of the seed or the chaff, etc. And then we have a machine called a fractioning aspirator that blows air. So then it sorts plant material and seeds apart based on weight. So it's a lot of and then after the fractioning aspirator, if it's a difficult to clean seed like goldenrod because they're so fluffy and the seeds are so tiny, might go back to screens, tap, 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 tap. It's like a lot of back and forth. But yeah, those two machines, make a huge difference, or the machine and the screens. Yep.
You ever have landowners interested in assisting you with, like, if they could recognize that you may have to travel a long way to get to a productive field, right? So rather than driving over the final season not ready, you ever have landowners?
I do think at least one of the landowners kind of keeps an eye on how they're doing, how far along they are. Fortunately, we don't travel very far. I think maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes tops. So that helps. But one of the landowners likes coming to pick with us, so that's always great. Cuts us time. Yep.
Awesome.
All righty.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.